the hottest industries are going to ultimately end up being the service industries. People buy from people. I mentioned that earlier. And
Sure.
you still need to, in sales, be able to build that trust relationship. But Mark saw that how important this was, is that staying involved and staying with your customer and making sure they're successful. What a novel idea. I learned from him to, no matter who you are, no matter how successful you become, is one, always be humble. Two, always give back.
In this week's episode, I sit down with Chris Lee, one of technology's most experienced revenue leaders. Over the past 28 years, Chris has helped build and scale some of the biggest names in enterprise software, including DocuSign and Salesforce, before leading revenue transformation across multiple high-growth technology companies. In this episode, we discuss what it really takes to scale from startup to enterprise, the biggest mistake founders make along the way, and how AI is reshaping go-to-market. We also dive into lessons Chris learned from working alongside leaders such as Mark Benioff, and why recently he decided to return to Salesforce as Chief Revenue Officer within AgentForce. So let's jump straight in. Chris, great to see you. How are you, first of all?
Thank you for having me.
You look very sharp. Definitely the most well-dressed I've seen on the podcast.
This is what I wear every single day. I always get dressed up for my daily Zoom calls. So in my podcast, so that's not true. If you catch me not being on a podcast, I will be wearing something completely different. So I thought I would dress up today and be special on a Friday afternoon.
Well, thank you so much for that, and you're very welcome. Chris, let's kick things off. Could you give us a quick 30-second introduction? Who is Chris and what do you do?
Yeah, great. So one, thank you for having me on the podcast. I've heard so many great things about it. I definitely wanted to raise my hand and say I wanted to be a part of it. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, Ian. Interestingly enough, I'll go really far back. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, grew up lower middle class. And I say that because it's my drivers, right? It's the things that created my why of why I do what I do. And I never forget it, because the way I grew up is actually the reasons why I am who I am, right? And it's those things that when you come from the bottom, you don't fear the bottom. So a lot of the decisions that I've made in my career have been because of the fact that this is the way I've been born and raised, and it's kind of interesting, and that creates the person who you are. So fast forward, I've been in software and technology for probably roughly about 28 years. I've seen some amazing paradigm shifts in the industry, from traditional software to on-demand to now AI, and I'm sure there's many, many other areas that it's going to start moving towards as well. And I've been a part of some really great organizations that have shaped who I am and what I've done in my career. Companies like Siebel Systems, Salesforce.com, that's been a huge factor in my life and my career and my family, and DocuSign and other companies like Reputation.com. And so I've seen some of the best, and I've learned from some of the best from CEOs like Tom Siebel, Mark Benioff, Keith Kroc, and Joe Fuca. A lot of these guys have different styles and different methodologies of how to lead and how to manage. And it's amazing when you have some of the best, you start to kind of take pieces of that and mold yourself around that. And that's what made me who I am in this industry. And now I'm back at Salesforce because it's interesting to see that a CEO continues to see around corners and continues to set the bar and set the vision for the future of where technology is going. And that's Mark Benioff. And I could only resist so much, and I have to come back because I really want to be a part of that and make that the end part of my career. So this is really exciting time and moment for me.
Great introduction, and perfect timing as well, because you just literally joined Salesforce. Was it last week? So perfect time on my part. So Chris, take us back to the start, right? So 2003, you joined a startup called Salesforce, right? That grew into the beast that it is today. You were working very closely with Mark Benioff, as you mentioned there, right? So what was that experience like, working in that business and then working very closely with Mark as well?
Yeah. So Ian, I've got to tell you that going from a Siebel Systems where we were selling traditional software, and the methodology there was like, from a sales perspective, it was you would sell a really big deal, then basically run for the hills because 9 times out of 10, those type of deployments never really worked. It was very costly. And as a salesperson, you never went back because you thought, uh-oh, now they're going to really anchor me down. And then you started to realize that there was this idea that Mark was creating called on demand, being able to take your software and get access to it through, one click of a button and going through the internet. And wow, that was really amazing. And it took time to get folks to really understand what this shift meant. So many large enterprise companies that had data centers and had traditional software just did not see this on demand coming. And it took some time and it took some convincing. But the thing that Mark Benioff did really well then was that, again, he never backed down from this idea of on demand. And then two, what he did a really great job of is he made the product really easy to use. And he really made it easy to do business. And then the third piece was he really had an unbelievable idea of, hey, we need really strong customer satisfaction, customer service, because in this world of on demand, once that renewal comes up, they have the ability to say, I want to look elsewhere. I want to look at a different technology. But if you keep the customer successful and seeing the value of your product, then they won't go anywhere. But Mark saw that how important this was, is that staying involved and staying with your customer and making sure they're successful, what a novel idea. And that's what really took off for Mark and Salesforce. And the other piece of this is Mark never stopped inventing or looking forward. He was a visionary from the beginning. He always was trying to think of the next new thing. And that's what made companies and customers so special to Salesforce, was that they wanted to be part of a company that was constantly changing, constantly innovating, and looking at different ways to grow their business and do it efficiently and more productive. That was the way Mark started Salesforce, and it's just continued to be that way over the past almost 30 years.
Brilliant. Yeah. And is there anything, like, I know you touched on a few pieces there, but is there anything you specifically learned from him then that you're still enforcing now with businesses that you work with?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I learned from him. I learned from him to, no matter who you are, no matter how successful you become, is one, always be humble. Two, always give back, right? And it's interesting because when you think, what have you learned, right? And in your career, you go, oh, well, what I learned in technology and software, and then we rattle all those things off. And yeah, I've learned a ton from Mark. But what I've learned from Mark are those two key things that you can bring to life, right? It's and what you do in your world. And that's where I am, where I'm kind of looking and reflecting back as to, like, what have I learned? What can I give? What can I put forward? And it's those basic life lessons that you put towards your business. And I still will put that forward. And Mark hasn't changed that, giving back to the nonprofits and giving back to the community and giving back to the world. And that's what I've taken from it. Technology wise, what I've taken from it also was, again, life lesson is like, be human. And if you fail, or if you have done something or wrong something, make it right and hone up to it, and just believe that, it was my fault, or I should have done this, and let me change it. And that's customer service. That's customer satisfaction, is, hey, I'm not here to point blame or what have you. I'm here to find a solution. How do we work together? How do we partner together to make it right? And they're the things that I've learned as I've gone through, and I've taken them with me from my first round at Salesforce, and coming back, I see it's still here, and it's a great wrapper to a career.
Yeah, I love that. I love that it's not necessarily about the technology. It's more about just human interaction, and it's raw, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. And I see that as well. Like the leaders I chat to, the best leaders I chat to, are super humble. Like even the fact that you're on the podcast, you're open to conversations with people. Like it's great, right? And you're really giving back. And I think that then feeds into the culture of the business then. And people stay and people love working there, all that kind of good stuff. And
I'll also tell
sorry,
you, what I've also found is that people buy from people.
yeah,
You could have the best technology in the world, and if a customer doesn't feel as if you're in the foxhole with them, meaning that you may have sold them a software or technology that will do what they need it to do, provide the value that they need, but if something goes wrong, that will really be the end all be all for what that partnership means, because you need to be there. If you sold that product, you need to back it up, and you shook their hand, and you're now in it with them for customers for life. And that's really, really important. And that's what really makes a great company too.
yeah, it's interesting. So it's just to recap there, I suppose the technology is super important and the makeup around that, but then how you engage with the customer. Whereas traditionally before Salesforce, it wasn't as, you weren't as engrossed with the customer. Whereas now it's all very customer centric. And do you think that like whole storytelling piece then, I know Mark talks a bit about that, and I know you talk a bit about that. Do you think that's important as well now more than ever?
You know, I think it's one of the most important things. And the
Mhm.
storytelling part helps customers, partners, what have you, understand what you're trying to accomplish without using so many buzzwords.
Yeah.
Everyone, if you want to go to anyone's website, you see these amazing buzzwords of AI and machine learning but okay, but what does that mean? I look at it this way, Ian. Any type of solution is solving for something. And there's what I look at it is they're puzzle pieces. And what you're solving and trying to help them with. But if you can't put those puzzle pieces or understand what you're trying to solve for, what's the end picture you're trying to put those pieces together to look like, then they're just really beautiful pieces. And regardless of what they look like, you still aren't solving your problem. You've got to find a
Mhm.
way to put it back together again and make it better, more productive, more efficient. And that's the challenge for a lot of companies, is that they all sound the same. They may be in different industries, but and different technologies, but they use so many of the same buzzwords. But you actually visualize it and actually can see a day in the life. And I'm a big proponent of that. I'm a big proponent of, one platform and one view, and being able to look at and visualize what it is that a company is doing. That's a really big game changer. Listen, at the end of the day, we've grown up all of our lives as little children all the way to adults. And then we tell our children all of these great stories, right? Everything about whether it's a religion or whether it's an idea or whether it's a some type of mantra or something you're trying to get across, you tell it in a story, right? And a
Mhm.
story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. A story has a villain and a hero. And, villain is the problem. Villain is the issue you're trying to solve. The hero ends up being the company that comes in to solve the problem. And there's that in between. And how do you get there together? But again, it's really being able to visualize that into a story. And Mark has been one of the best in telling the stories.
Yeah, yeah, love that. Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, just I suppose a bit about you, right? Like throughout your career, you've mastered this transformation piece, right? Every company you've gone into over the last number of years have seen transformation, big transformation, and you've become an expert in that area. And I suppose you become an expert in identifying these companies as well, right? So before you're going into these companies, like what are you looking out for?
Yeah. Um, there's a common denominator in a lot of the companies that I can tell you that I think have been really some of the greatest. And companies like the Siebel, Salesforce, DocuSigns, it's interesting because the things that I look for are, is there a real problem that this company and technology is trying to solve for? That's one. The other
Mm,
is it easy to understand what you do? And again, that goes back to that storytelling. Hey, okay, I have a problem, but what is what's the story here? Like, what are you doing? How are you going to help me solve it? And let me see it. Let me actually get my hands on it. Really important. And then the other is, it's interesting and amazing because every company that I've been with that's been successful has been replacing Excel spreadsheets or manual effort. And it's crazy that companies and industries today are still working off of Excel spreadsheets or still working off of, working with manual efforts to try to solve problems versus leveraging technology like a CRM or AI and it's amazing that I see that and I'm looking at it going, wait a second, if you're in this industry and you are still doing that, that industry is prime. And then the
Yeah.
other piece is I also look to leadership. I want to know that I'm coming in to a company that has executives, leaders that have done it before or willing to understand how to be successful and have mentors and so on and so forth. I think great leadership is also one of the things that I would look for when you're trying to find the ideal company.
Bro. Yeah. It's great. So many multifaceted approaches to it, because I suppose people say, oh, it's lucky if someone got into a growing business, whereas your moves seem to be very strategic and you know exactly what you're looking out for, right? And like, is there any standard process or standard thing that's typically broken before you go into these businesses?
There is, right? So when you're going into a business and you're trying to retool to go to market, or you're trying to basically change the messaging or trying to be relevant or trying to be the global leader, there's a lot of different things that you look for. And I think that one that I'm really cautious of when I do it are companies that have either uh, early stage founders or ones that are CEOs that are founder CEOs, because oftentimes if you are a CEO with a founder CEO, and no knock against founder CEOs, but if you're a founder CEO, um, you really need to, just because you are a founder doesn't necessarily mean that you understand how to do the business. Mark was amazing with it, but he grew up in, working at Oracle. So he knew in the beginning of what it meant and how to build a company from the beginning. But if you just come out of college or what have you, it doesn't necessarily mean with a great idea and you get funding that suddenly that you know how to drive the business. And that's really important. For me, it's if indeed you have an early stage founder or a founder CEO, whatever, you want them to at least have a good mentor or someone that has done it before that they can lean in on. And I've seen great companies, it's being humble and knowing that just because
Yeah.
I am a CEO doesn't necessarily mean I also can't learn, can't, uh, gain insights from some of the best that have done it before. And that's also a key for me is just, being a part of a company that surrounds itself with experience and others that have done it before.
Brilliant. Yeah. I suppose that humble piece again. And do you think like more technical founders then are sometimes better off because they kind of know, okay, we don't know the go-to-market space. Let's
Yeah.
just outsource it. Let's get someone else to do it instead of a founding CRO or CEO, CRO, So what's your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. That is a really great point because it's, it takes, it extends the amount of time to uh, drive the business and grow the business when you haven't done it before, or you're trying to figure things out. And with a great idea and funding, you can that you're going in the right direction. But having a CEO, CRO, C-suites, or what have you, you really need those players in place that have done it because they'll cut through all of the effort and time of trying to figure it out. If they've done it before, they can rinse and repeat oftentimes. But again, what's been successful for one's playbook doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be transfer well to another company, 5 years, 10 years later, because you just always have to use your playbook as a framework, but be able to adapt it to the environment, the industries, what have you. So it is important, and it does save a lot of time to bring those in that have that playbook already and that have seen success.
Brilliant. Okay. Very good. And like you've worked across multiple company sizes. right? So you've seen it from every single angle. Is there any go-to-market principles that are similar as you scale the business?
Mhm. There's a lot of similarities, and it's a lot of, um, the framework is there, but then I look at it this way. In growing a business, there's phases, there's stages of that evolution. As I
Yeah.
said earlier, it's, what takes you from 0 to 20, 25 is not going to be the same approach and stages that you're going to take it to 50 and 75, 100 and then beyond. I think once you hit 100, then it's kind of just making tweaks to what the strategy is and the infrastructure and so on and so forth. Um, and again, I think it's like 0.04% of companies ever make it to 100 million before they either get acquired or go out of business. So
Mm.
kind of interesting little fact there, because 100 million is kind of uh, that that number that everyone's trying to get to in order to say, am I a real company? But
Yeah.
once you're kind of like those different stages is like, I think the hardest part is trying to grow that to 100, which is you're constantly moving the go to market. You're constantly adjusting the different pieces of it and bringing in different folks at those different levels. So there are similarities in it, in that once you get to that number of 100 as an enterprise company and as you're a startup and early stage, you are still have the same fabric. You still are doing very similar playbooks. It's just a matter of doing the little bit of the tweaks once you hit over that 100 point, of which you just have to understand that if you're going to expand to that size, you can't have 100 sales reps with only 10 solution engineers or 3 customer
Mm.
success. You always have to keep that balance of, I've got, you know, X number of AEs. I need, 3, you know, two SEs to every one, or 3 SEs, or I'm sorry, flip that around, 3
Yeah.
AEs to every 1 SE. And you also need the balance of customer success, because as these customers are coming in, you want to make sure that there's someone that's reaching out and maintaining that relationship, showing the value, and then also expanding what is there, and also saving the renewals as well. But that's kind of the approach, is that you just need to make sure that balance is there. But the framework is almost identical. In fact, it is identical.
Interesting. So do you think it's more of a, like, a systems challenge or people challenge, or a mix of both?
Well, that's interesting, because what I've seen is that companies that have been successful usually will invest early on the foundation of the systems and of how they're planning to grow the business. And it also, right, leans back to those that have done it before. So they already know in advance,
Mm.
these are the systems that we're going to need to get. These are the ones that will grow with us. Because oftentimes, being, you know, very conscious of budget and numbers and so on and so forth, really important. But, you know, again, bringing in a system like a lower level CRM, or leveraging the wrong back end system, and now you've integrated them, you made them work, if you will. You've kind of shoehorned them or bubblegummed them together, but you're going to have to change them at some point again, because
Yeah.
as you grow, they're just not there, or going to be able to grow with you. So now you've got to look back, and now you have to do a transformation of your internal infrastructure to
Mm.
just get to where you are. So that investment early on in the systems to be successful, it's worth it in the beginning to get that framework down. It's like building a house. Are you going to build it on rock, or are you going to build it on sand? Yeah, it can get so high on sand, but at some point, it's going to get wiped out over time as it gets too heavy or the weather changes. But if you have bedrock and it's locked in on concrete, then you're going to be able to withstand any of those storms and what have you. So getting that infrastructure and systems down early on is really important.
Yeah, that's such good advice, because I suppose, like, especially early stage businesses, there's a lot going on. It's hectic, and you just want to get it done. And it's hard to do things that you don't necessarily see the results of just yet. It's like future events. And like you talked a lot about people there and structure. Obviously now with AI, things are changing so quickly and so fast. How is that making you think about structuring that go-to-market team?
Yeah. It is.
$1 million question.
Well, AI is constantly making you look at how you do your business. And what you're seeing now is the ability to leverage AI, agentic AI, to do things faster, right? More efficiently. And, when you think about a process within your organization, and you may have had 5 BDRs, or you may have had a team that does all your invoicing, or someone over here that they do, internal help or call center, or any of those are, response time, and being able to react and being able to adjust your business on the fly. In the past, when you look at that process, your end-to-end business and how you do it, and that is going to be affected tremendously. And you have to look at how do you build your company, because when you can see where AI is moving this, you're able to take processes and steps that may have taken days and weeks and have condensed them down to minutes. And if you're able to get that type of efficiency, then you've got to move towards, is it worth having 15 folks kind of running around trying to get things in order? Or is it about having AI and agents be able to identify where the problem is and immediately not only identify it, but understand what the problem is, and then be able to react to it and be able to push out, what it is to take action on what they've identified as an adjustment in the business. And that's really, really important. You'll still need to have, obviously, the human side of it to, make some of those kind of structural ideas, thoughts as to, do we want to have this team still in place? Is it something that we can offset with the newest technologies? And again, it will have an impact moving forward on how you build your teams. But again, like anything else, you'll adopt to it, you'll adopt it, you'll adapt to it, and you'll be able to, you'll see a whole new world of how folks do business from what we're seeing in the newest technologies.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I had a gentleman called Stu Gold on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he was talking about scaling businesses now in the AI world. But it's just around like, okay, you need to hire the top 5%, right? More than ever, because there's no place for tire kickers, right? Because AI will just amplify people. So getting in those key team members and then having AI around them to make them work more efficiently is really the future.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ian. There's someone who I admire really a lot. Susan St. Ledger, I grew up with her. She's been an amazing leader and executive from Salesforce and so many other companies. But she was also mentioning to me that, with technology today, if you're able to get and leverage, when you look at your business, you have 20% of your sellers are rock stars, right? And then the other 80% are good, and they're doing their business, but you always have those 20% that are just absolutely blowing it out and really game changers for the company. But if you're able to leverage the technology and AI today, if you're able to bring those 80 up to where the 20 are, suddenly you've got better productivity, you've got unbelievable efficiencies. And that's where, when you start to take a look at, hey, AI can help us prepare our day, be able to better research who our accounts are and what their needs are, and be able to then take that and be able to process it to a hey, solution engineer, solution consultant, we need a demo based off of what we heard here. And then reminders of if these are all the steps. You're basically taking someone that maybe have some organizational challenges, but they do know how to sell. And now you're marrying the two of a great seller and great prep. And now all of a sudden you've turned that kind of mediocre salesperson into a great salesperson. And
Mm.
that's what you're going to start to see is being able to leverage the newest technology to bring that 80% up to 20. And then it's going to also help change companies' outlooks.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I suppose a lot of like every salesperson, I think, hates admin, right? And how many people in sales in the past have probably got out of sales because of the admin. And now it's a case where you don't have to do all that dirty work. And you can get AI to do it, and you can just do what you enjoy doing, right? So, and
Well, what I said
sorry, go on.
before was that you've got, you still need to build, like people buy from people. I mentioned that earlier. And
Sure.
you still need to, in sales, be able to build that trust relationship. I- Ian needs to know who Chris is. Chris needs to know who Ian is. Is Chris going to be here for you when there's a problem, there's an issue? You may have AI that can solve it, but do you believe that I will be the one that you can reach out to me and say, "Hey, Chris, you told me this, you sold this to me. Are you there with me in the foxhole?" You still
Mm.
need that relationship. So a lot of those folks that built those relationships have the experience, 20, 25 years of selling to the C-suite, as they say, and have that knowledge and ability to build the relationship. That combined with the latest technology will make it that much more successful for a company. And I also think that you're going to see those folks that have been selling for many, many years stick around a little longer because
Yeah.
you do need them to build and have knowledge of how to build trust and how to build relationships and partnerships.
And how do you see, like you've really mastered the enterprise selling space, right? And I suppose AI is disrupting that. And we talked previously around AI and BDR, the BDR function, right? And AI can do a lot of that now. How do you see people, like especially younger people in their careers, progressing now, into enterprise selling?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I have been, as I say before, I've been paying it forward and
Yeah.
I've been helping a lot of students out of the universities. Um, and usually the jumping off point was being a BDR. And
Mm.
then you go BDR to account executive and account executive on. But um, there's still a world of which, listen, I'm a huge proponent of my advice has always been to any newcomers in the business is, you know, volunteer to do the work, be an intern in the summers, and don't get paid for it. And really learn, observe, find the place that you think you can help an organization and and move forward that way so that you are a valuable asset to the company, but you may not be getting paid a lot out of the gate just so that you understand it. But again, that jumping off point was from BDR, but I would say, there's a lot of early stage startup companies that do need, you know, um, some early stage sales reps. But I also go back to if you're trying to get into sales in technology today, is think about anything that you can sell that shows that you know what it means to, one, build a relationship, two, be able to run a sales cycle, and
Mm.
three, it shows the fire in your belly for what you want. And I go, remember earlier in the conversation, I mentioned, hey, who am I? I'm the youngest of five kids and I grew up with nothing. That's the fire in my belly. And that is the thing that constantly, even today, drives me. And that's something that you want to see in someone is that drive, that initiative and that willingness to learn. And I go back to my early stage, and I wouldn't give it up for the world, is my early stage of selling was selling copiers and selling postage meters. I worked for Xerox. I worked for Pitney Bowes. And
Mm.
being able to go out in front of customers and ring doorbells and go face to face is really difficult, but it teaches you, one, how to adjust, how to sell. And I will tell you, and very quickly, is that I think about a sales approach very similar to the Rubik's Cube, how to solve a Rubik's Cube. because a Rubik's Cube, you solve one side and you still fail. So what do? You go back and you try to switch it around a little bit more, and you may have solved two sides. You still fail. And then you try to do it again. But it's being able to have success. And then when you hit that wall of, I don't want to call it failure, but it's not success, but you didn't fail all the way, then you adjust your approach and strategy again, and then you move forward until you have it solved. But that's that type of early stage salesperson that you can learn from being in anything. Try the most difficult sales, but make sure that you are, one, running a sales cycle. Two, you're learning from how to adjust quickly. And three, you do also have that fire in your belly to go out and sell and want to change and be humble. Listen to the greats, get a mentor and work side by side and just watch everything they do, mimic everything that they do, because that's what's made them successful, but then also encapsulate being you as well.
Interesting. You talk about mentor a lot. It's great. And I'm assuming throughout your career, you've had multiple mentors from the very start.
Oh man, my God. I've had, it's interesting, Ian, I've had mentors throughout my entire career. And I can tell you that they're still my mentors. I've never outgrown them. And I'm humble enough to tell you, I may never know as much as they know. And it's crazy that they still pick up my phone from a frantic, I feel like a little kid when I still pick up the phone and I'm like, listen, Jim, am I doing the right thing? Hey, Neil Hutsmith. Hey, Joe Fuca. Hey, Jim Steele. Hey, Jim Pandice, Dave Arico. And the list goes on and on and on of all the people that Eli Cohen from Saleshood, all of these guys will pick up the phone. And it amazes me that I'm so maybe I'm annoying and I just don't know it, but he still have no problems going, Chris, hey, grow up. Or, hey, Chris, yeah, you're wrong. It's not the right approach. Or, hey, Chris, you know what? You're on the right thing. Stick to do what you're doing. But those are the folks that will give you the true, and you got to trust them that they're not out to hurt you. They're out to help you. And that's what I want to do. I give that back. Anyone who asks me that, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I'll give them the truth and I'll tell them, hey, here's what you need to do to adjust and so on. But man, you cannot be successful without the folks that are willing to. And I mentioned Susan St. Ledger. I mean, I picked up the phone out of the blue. I've known her forever. And it was like 2 seconds. And she picks up and goes, let me help you out with this, and shows me her plan and structure. Jim Steele's the same way. Man, the guy's helped me throughout my entire career. And I can't thank these folks enough. But yes, mentors are so, so, so important.
Yeah. That whole vulnerability piece, again, is so important, isn't it? Because I suppose that the founder or leader that knows it all, you'd have to question that.
That's, Ian, vulnerability is, if you can embrace it and realize that you're not the end all be all, don't believe your hype, right? It's the Public Enemy thing. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype about yourself. And there's always better. It can always be better. And you just need to realize that your approach is your approach, and just be kind and do the right thing by people. That's the end of the day, is just being a human. And that's the underlying, we talk about a foundation of a company, a foundation of a person, a foundation of a successful person, a foundation of who you want to work with is someone that in the heart is really a true to themselves and is like, they're built on the idea of giving back and helping others and being kind and realizing it's not about the technology. That's always going to change. It's not about, it's like I said, buying from people. People buy from people. It's because at the end of the day, even if the technology changes, I'll still pick up the phone and call a Larry Feinsmith who runs JP Morgan Chase, and I'll wish him a happy holidays, or how's the family, or it's been a while. Hey, I'm just checking in on you. And it's just because they're friends, they're people. You build a relationship. It's not just about technology. It's about people that are in your lives. And again, like I said, just being kind and doing the right thing.
Yeah. I love that. That's so refreshing to hear. And you're at the forefront of this AI wave now in Salesforce and AgentForce as well. So, like, do you feel people will ever get out of the mix as the whole
No,
AI world evolves?
no, I don't think people will ever get out of the mix. I think there's always an area that will require people. And again, it's just being able to adapt. It's a change. It's just the way an industry, it's the way anything else, in order to grow, you're going to have change. And it'll just, they'll adapt to something else. There'll be another area of the business, another area of service that you end up seeing. I mean, listen, the hottest industries are going to ultimately end up being the service industries, right? It's like, hey, I don't think I'm going to have AI, take tree limbs down in my backyard or change my roof or it's like or cut my hair or what have you. But these are the things that those services businesses will end up in the world of how the industries today is like the shift will be from hey more of the technology and the hottest will start to end up being because AI and what have you will end up in AgentForce will end up handling that, but you'll end up seeing the service side of the world start to take on a different look.
And how do you think that will affect like kids or people earlier in their careers now if they're trying to develop certain skills? So like, what skills should they be developing now to get into this world?
Well, you and I talked earlier, and I was saying that it amazes me that universities, colleges are so behind the times in technology. You've got professors that, started out, graduated college, got their master's, got their PhD, and now they're teaching, but they haven't really been in the world enough to apply. They haven't been able to put their teachings to the test. So they're not really aware of what works, what doesn't work. So that's really interesting in itself. But I think the curriculum of education needs to change a bit to start to come around with the times. It's like, hey, what is it that I should be looking at early on from high school to college of where is the world going? And a lot of that is going towards the service community, right? Is like, how do and it may be that combination of technology and service and being able to say, hey, the technology is never going to get their hands on it for a while, but you'll be able to at least kind of combine it and do your business. It's interesting. I saw just recently a friend of mine's in the construction business, and I thought, wow, that's untouchable. But it was interesting because now they have hard hats that actually have a camera that is obviously taking ongoing video of, the folks out there doing the service. And are they doing it right and correctly? Are they doing it? So you're seeing technology even leak into the service world. But again, it's trying to think about how do I look at a career potentially down the road that does combine the two, a service and also the technology.
Very interesting. And like that just naturally brings me on to the next question around like you've seen multiple companies, right? You're on the board of multiple companies as well. And investors, is there now an emphasis on focusing on service as well as the tech? Are you looking at two areas now?
Yeah, I think tech is always going to be there and they're always going to be a focus. There's always going to be investors there. But I do see service businesses starting to rise up in the world of, venture capital and PEs, like looking at what are those businesses that we can move into. Like when you think about businesses like beauty industry and that in itself, it's interesting because I'm starting to see companies and investors go towards hairstylists and barbers and dentists and doctors, and where they're like, hey, let's pull it all together and have them in one location, one group, and we'll take the technology and we'll bring them together. So there is kind of a coming together of both of those, technology and service, but the services side, like dentists, doctors, lawyers to some degree, construction workers, all of that, you're going to see them come together and invest in a much bigger conglomerate of those services into one, and create a business from it and a service from it. And that's where you're going to start to see that, I think, change towards.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, because I was chatting to an investor last week and he was mentioning that their portfolio was mainly in tech, but now they've gone a different direction as well. And it's like, I think it was like a boat party company that they were investing in. And they're like, let's just stay, like have this here with the AI stuff, but let's go the complete opposite direction and invest
Yeah.
in this as well, because it's a bit easier to predict.
And I never thought I would bring up hair salons and construction and lawn services. And when I'm talking all these years and 28 years of technology, but here I am doing it because, again, the world has changed. It's shifted, and we're going to start to see what that means to a lot of those folks that have had hands-on businesses, and you're going to see them start to really boom. Like, you can't build a house without having, hands on it, right? AI can give the map, can structure it, the blueprints and what have you, but the actual hands-on tools and building it, you're really going to need that human touch. And again, you're going to start to see all of those services businesses, I think, really grow exponentially.
So do you think that if you're starting a business now or early stage founder, your mentality it should be around that? How can we expand, or how can we
Yeah,
integrate a service offering? Yeah,
I definitely think about if I were an early stage founder or having a business in an incubator, I would be thinking about, how do I take the knowledge of technology and move it into whatever service that is, where it's hands-on, it's human touch, and how do I make that service that invariably will be here probably the longest, how do I bring technology to it and make that more efficient and productive of how they do it, not replace it, but how do I make it better? And that's where you'll find a lot of that human touch, but it'll be, like I said, it'll be much better run through the technology side of it.
yeah, okay,
That
makes perfect
combination.
sense. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, and just one question on habits, right? That you see in early stage businesses. Is there any habit that you see founders don't implement early that they should implement?
Yeah, it gets back to one, as an early stage founder, is always be humble, always realize that because you are a founder and maybe perhaps the CEO, that's not a license to tell everyone you know everything about the business and you know everything about everything. It's like always being humble and always, you said, being vulnerable and understanding that um, there's others that have done it successfully and they've done it better than you, and learn from them and
Yeah.
have that team of mentors around you that can help guide you, and they'll tell you the hard line of what you're doing wrong. And you've got to be able to accept it without pushback and realize that it's coming from a world of trust and love, but it's also one to help you grow. And so many early stage founders and what have you, they don't, just because you have a great idea, it doesn't necessarily mean you know how to run the business. I've been in a couple that have had, you know, they had the idea, but they don't know how to grow a go-to-market, or they don't know what does it mean to innovate on the current product and who needs to be a part of that. And that's the area that you need to look to your mentors to help guide you. And a lot of them don't. So you may have a great product and a great idea that fails by the time they get to $20 million because they can't hit that next phase of the evolution that we talked about earlier, because they just don't know what to do at that point. So they panic, and the pressure from the investor starts to really hit hard of, hey, where are my dollars going right now? And what are you doing about it? And then there's either a shift from that founder CEO to maybe they move to chairman or something, and then you bring in someone that has experience to get you to the next level.
Yeah, that's yeah. Again, that mentor piece is so important. Is there anything that advice you can give to individuals that are looking for mentors? Like, what traditionally have you looked for in these people?
Well, it's never that you go out and say, "Hey, you're now my mentor," but it's
Yeah,
those folks that you work with, and you can kind of look around and you see that they're successful, and it doesn't hurt to say, "Hey, listen, Ian, I just wanted to grab some time. I just want to let you know that you are, I'm really impressed at what you've done. And if you can help me, give me a couple of ideas here and there, if you don't mind me shadowing you, if you don't mind me jumping on a call with you just to hear and be a fly on the wall. I want to learn. I want to be able to understand kind of what makes you tick so that maybe these are some of the things that I can work on, or, hey, can you give me pieces of advice? Do you mind if I reach out to you, if I have a problem? And more often than not, you're always going to have someone say, yeah, of course. If you need anything, just let me know. And that's the way a mentorship begins, is just, again, goes back to that side of being humble and just saying, hey, listen. And by the way, even when I was selling and I was doing really well, I still went back to some of the great sales guys like Dave Renitzky, Jim Steele, and Joe Williams, and Dave Arick. I went to all of these guys, and I may have been doing well, but I could see it could be done better, right? And
yeah,
it's like, hey, if you don't mind, what should I do a little differently here? Or could I've expanded that a little bit better? And that's the type of stuff that you want to be able to build that trust, and mentors come in that form.
yeah. Great advice, Chris. So yeah, just I suppose one last question. You've just started a new role in Salesforce, right? So really exciting. I know you've just started, so but like, how are you thinking about that position now? And I suppose how like sales is evolving so much, and the role of a CRO is evolving so much. So what's your mindset going into this job? You know?
Wow, and wow, it's a great question because I can tell you that I am over the moon at being back at Salesforce. It's just, oh man, it's just so refreshing for me. Um, it's just being back with some of the greatest people of all time. And, but it's funny because I had a conversation just last evening with my wife, and I was saying to her, all my career, it's always been thinking about, well, how can I show that I know the most in the room? How do I show that my way is the right way? And I'm not here for that. I'm here to help take what I've learned in my 28 years and apply them to help a really great business become even greater. And if it means that someone on my team, one of my directs, my manager, my leaders, my CEO has a better idea, a better way to do it, I'll abandon mine and just go with yours. Because by the time you try to force an idea or what have you, why bother? Why not just go with what works and stop trying to get your fingerprints on it? And it's not about, for me in this career, to say, hey, I did it and look at me. I created a really great area of the business at Salesforce. It's we have built a really great company. And it's not about me anymore. And that's where I've grown up. And it's about making and creating a really great company. And that's what drives me. And it's, I look back and when I go back and see who I was 25 years ago and how I've evolved as a person, and it is completely night and day, where you start off thinking about money and how do you think about just trying to get as much of it as you can so that you can get
Yeah.
a bigger house or a bigger car or show your neighbors that but it's not about that. It's really not. When you look back on it, it's so hard to explain that to someone who's
You
starting
need to
out.
do it,
Yeah,
and
I
then
mean, if you
you need
just
to learn from doing it. Yeah.
that's it. I mean, you don't. It's funny because you look back and it's like it's almost like I come back from the future, and I even tell my children, hey, it's not about that. It's about giving back. And they're like, okay, well, but it's very difficult to try to explain that without having someone actually live it. So at this stage in my career, it's that's what I'm going to be doing at Salesforce, is just listening and sharing where I can to make a really great company. And obviously, it's already a great company. So the foundation is there. The people are amazing. Partners are amazing. And I don't say that just to say, it for all the reasons of the obvious reasons as it is at Salesforce, but it really is. I mean, it's one of those great companies that I've tried for many years as a CRO to try to capture in my own business, but it is really fleeting in the way that you just can't. Sometimes it's just like you can't capture lightning in a bottle once it's there. And Salesforce has never let go of that lightning. And why try to create it if it's already there? So it's time to join it and come back. And that's why I'm here again.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I've no doubt it's going to be a massive success. You're the master of transformation, and you're such a humble guy. So listen, best of luck with all that. Chris, thanks so much for joining me. That was really, really good.
Yeah, no, Ian,
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I listen, as I said, I've heard so many great things about your podcast, and when you reached out, I was absolutely over the moon to do it. So, hey, good luck in this as well. And I think
Thank you.
we need more of these type of podcasts because, again, it's just more forward thinking, and it helps the new generation understand, as we talked about, is like the things to look for, the things that are kind of the patterns of success. And I think you've captured it with this podcast. So I appreciate you inviting me to be a part of it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Chris. Chris, if someone wanted to find you, you've LinkedIn, obviously, Chris Lee. You have a website, I know from previously, but how can people reach out to you?
Listen, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm really responsive. And if there is anything, listen, I'm always, like I said, I'm always willing to give back. If there's any idea that someone has that wants an input to or what have you, I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And so LinkedIn's probably the best way. My personal cdlee3030@gmail.com, and you can always reach me personal there too.
Nice. Great. Thanks so much, Chris.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ian.